basically menopause is the point where you can no longer have children. But that doesn't mean that your life comes to a standstill. It doesn't mean that you disappear from society and become invisible. It doesn't mean that there's this whole raft of symptoms that are going to change you for the worse. I believe that there's incredible power for women once they've gone through menopause, and it just means that we need to see their role in society differently. I think if we kind of spin menopause as this pivot point, the role of women changes into something that's going to benefit workplaces, benefit society, communities, then we can really start to embrace it in another way.
Welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast. This episode, proudly sponsored by the Guinea Group of Companies, an organisation that helps leaders upgrade their mindset, upskill their leadership, and uplift their teams. If you would like the opportunity to sponsor an episode of our podcast, please reach out to the team at the Guinea Group, theguineagroup.com.au, the team at theguineagroup.com.au. Can't wait to hear from you. And if you would like to be a podcast guest, click on the information sheet that is available on the podcast page. Right, Amanda, you're smiling in this picture here, and you've got a whole lot of ladies in their menopausal thing going on there, and that
Yes,
looks like
that's
exciting
right.
times. Talk us through it talk us through it. My wife's just gone a year period free, I think. So I think that's some sort of a milestone for her. So she's pretty excited about that. Whatever that means. It's good. As long as she's happy. It means we can't have any kids anymore.
That is absolutely what it means. And yes, normally a year without a period signifies that you are well and truly in the menopause phase. So yes, quite a milestone.
In the menopause phase. Now, before we talk about the metamorphosis, the menopause phase, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Amanda? Is that all right, just for all our listeners and viewers out there?
Yeah, I'd love to. So you can probably tell I have a bit of an Australian twang as well. I spent the last 22 years in Melbourne and also living in Sydney, working in the not-for-profit space. So my career has been really supporting people who face disadvantage to get equal opportunities to thrive in life. And I spent the last 10 years, and this is where I met one of your brilliant previous podcast guest, Pollyanna Lenkick, when I was working for an organisation that supported women facing disadvantage to get work and keep it. And for me, that's about financial sustainability for women, making sure that, as we age, we can live purposeful, meaningful, independent lives. And I was in that role as COO and then moving into CEO role for about 10 years. But I went through my own transformation through perimenopause and menopause just as I was about to step into the CEO role. And quite frankly, Anton, it just stripped me of my motivation and my confidence. And I thought I was actually having a breakdown. I thought I'd burned myself out. I wasn't sure what was happening. And it was over a glass of wine with a friend, as you do. And I'm telling her, what I'm struggling with, and I wasn't sleeping well. And I just didn't believe I could step into this role I've been preparing myself for 10 years. And she suggested it might be menopause, and that's really what's taken me on this journey. When I started delving into it, I realized just how much misinformation there was and lack of support. And because I've spent so many years helping women to find financial sustainability through employment, I realized that a lot of women were choosing to leave the workforce when they were struggling with menopause symptoms. And then that really felt like the natural next step for me to become a menopause coach and create workplaces that could support women.
So talk me through that, if you could, please, Amanda. What does it look like, feel like for an organisation to engage you? Like, how do you get a menopause safe workplace, for example?
Look, there's lots of different ways, and I think the UK and Australia are quite similar in this aspect, and in terms of the government bringing in some legislation and supporting changes. So, I mean, you know how this works. It normally comes from the top down. Organisations quite often put things in place when when they actually need to. But it starts with awareness raising. And something simple like storytelling within the organization over something like a lunch and learn, where I come in and I talk to teams about menopause, perimenopause, open up the conversation, just so people can start using the language. I was working for a fantastic company over here, quite a young company. They're in the tech space. The majority of their team would be sort of mid-20s to mid-30s. And I was actually working with their diversity, equity, and inclusion team around International Women's Day. And they invited me to come in and do really an introduction. And it was fascinating, because you wouldn't think that a younger audience would want to
Would be
have a
interested, would be
conversation.
engaged.
Would
That's
be
30 years away
engaged.
for us, they would have told you.
Yeah, but they
But did they
absolutely
have
were.
parents menopausal, or what was the...
Yes. Yeah, and I said that every woman is going to go through menopause at some point. It's absolutely inevitable. And every man that knows a woman is also going to go on this journey with
We go
her.
on the journey. We're on a
Go on
mission.
the journey, yeah. And it impacts everyone in the circle. It impacts relationships with children, with
Yes.
grandchildren, with
Yes.
work peers, with everyone in their lives. So,
Yeah.
we all should really have more knowledge about how to
Yeah, we
support
should.
women. Yeah.
And that is what one of the things we are doing today for all our listeners and our viewers out there. You are going to be educated in the next 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to find out what menopause really means. So you talked about then, Amanda Carlile, language in the business around menopause.
Yeah.
What sort of language do we need? Like, what do we need to be talking about?
I think it's just being comfortable to open up the conversation, really. I mean, menopause is, like I said, it's an inevitable journey that every woman's going to go on, but it's such a unique journey for every woman. So the first
Is
thing
it?
is creating cultures and spaces where women can feel okay to talk about their symptoms and the
Okay.
impacts it's having. I mean, 90% of women are going to feel some symptoms. There's only 10% of us that slide through this
Right.
unscathed. And for 25% of those women, it's going to be debilitating. And it can take many forms physically. We've all heard of the hot flushes and
Yeah.
lack of sleep. Yeah, controlling your temperature
Nice.
becomes a challenge because of the
Yeah.
estrogen depletion.
Right. So can I ask you something just from a very, very male perspective
Of
that is
course.
very, very uneducated, uncouth to a degree, outback Queensland, like a bushy.
So
Like,
embrace it.
can I embrace that?
Of course.
Like, wouldn't women be talking about all this stuff anyway? Like, don't they all just go to work and like go, "I'm menopausal, I've got this, you've got that, right? What do we do?" Like, I would have thought that, is there not just a natural support thing that happens if you've got two 50-year-old women together and they go, "I'm going through this," and or if we got to, like, what is it about the culture that has to change to allow that to happen?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Women in their own circles do. But when it comes to
Ah,
opening up conversations in the workplace, it can feel very different. And women will be struggling with things like brain fog, anxiety, lack of confidence. So to raise that to a line manager or to your peers makes you feel very vulnerable. You don't want to be
I get it.
seen to not be able to do your job. So I think what's
That's it.
important is that, yeah, managers open up the conversation and they make it okay to talk about these things. And then you've got the policy supports and the structural supports that can help women. But one of the things that's really interesting is the cultural differences with menopause. So women from different cultures experience menopause in different ways. And there are certain cultures that don't even have a word for menopause, as how little it's talked about. So if you've got somebody managing a team of women and yet in their own home environment, they don't open up the conversation of menopause, how can they have the tools and the level of understanding and comfort to then have that conversation in the workplace when it's not featured in their own lives? So I think it's important that we bring this into the workplace and we don't just rely on women having conversations with each other.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
You nailed that. And thank you so much. That could not have been answered better. So it's not just about supporting each other, because I love that. So there's brain fog, there's anxiety, there's all this other stuff, and managers and leaders see poor performance, but they don't see body changes and they don't see hormonal changes. And so they've got to understand that the performance potentially is a subset or a
Yeah.
result of estrogen and other hormones that we know nothing about as a male.
Yeah, and just bringing it into those performance conversations, rather than it be we're going to performance manage or we need to see an improvement, it's a case of how are you doing? What's going on for you? And have menopause as one of the questions for women, so that they have an opportunity to push it on the table, and then we can do something about it.
I love that. That is best ever. So for the last 2 days, we've been doing a leadership training program around psychological safety, around speaking up, around leaders being caring, time, valuing, hearing, and supportive. And like you imagine if you had a manager or leader who cared enough to spend the time to understand it, who valued a menopausal woman when she said, "Hey, I'm struggling with this, that, or the other," and then supported them with a day off or with coaching or helping or less hours or different work or whatever the case might be. I get that.
Yeah. And there's a very good business case for this as well, Anton, as I'm sure you know. We've got more women in the workplace than ever. We've got more women in leadership roles. They say it's what, 10% of an annual salary to replace and retrain someone. If you've got a senior leader who's on 150, 200,000, then rather than lose her and have to fork out 15 grand to replace and retrain, spend that money supporting your team and put those practices and policies and training and awareness in place. So it's there's a real bottom line argument for investing in this too.
I love that. Now, let me ask you this. So I've probably got a male hat on. That's probably because of my lens. Do women leaders then, like, let's say I'm a woman CEO and I get menopause. So does that help? Do you find that women senior leaders are better at leading organizations that have got women in them because they understand it better? Or is it just, everyone's the same and needs this education?
Look, not always. Again, it very much depends on the individual woman, and her approach to leadership. But one of the things that I have noticed is that when women in those senior leadership roles are willing to share their personal experiences and be vulnerable and do the storytelling, then the rest of the organization comes with them. But there are equally a number of women who don't talk about it for exactly the reasons I mentioned before. They don't want to be seen that they can't do their job, and they don't want people to feel that the menopause symptoms are a weakness and are detracting. So we've got some education to do for female leaders so that they feel comfortable to step up. And this is all the stigma that's around and has been for many years around menopause and its symptoms. Women turning into dragons and losing their tempers and all of that. That rhetoric needs to change, really.
Beautifully put. And we're going back to the languaging in the organization. There's a couple of things that you said then that I just want to unpack a little bit. The first one is, so let's say I'm a female CEO. Do I have a fear that the board, for example, might look at me differently if I am vulnerable? Is that a fear? Because that's a psychologically unsafe organization, and so let's put a yes on that, because you sort of said before there are some senior women that struggle with that. And so then there's this negative rhetoric around menopause, which I didn't realise. Can you do all our viewers a favour, please, and go, well, what's the negative rhetoric? And then how do we turn that into something that is useful, something that's uplifting and empowering?
Yeah, because this is something I'm really interested in, and the rhetoric around menopause being the end of a woman's productivity, basically, in terms of the role of her as a mother. Basically, menopause is the point where you can no longer have children, but that doesn't mean that your life comes to a standstill. It doesn't mean that you disappear from society and become invisible. It doesn't mean that there's this whole raft of symptoms that are going to change you for the worse. I believe that there's incredible power for women once they've gone through menopause. And it just means that we need to see their role in society differently. And there's a brilliant example. Is that it's only 200 years ago that women, the average age of women was sort of mid-40s. So if you think about it, it's only in the last couple of hundred years that as a society, we're dealing with the fact that women are living, till mid-70s. So that's sort of 20, 30 years post-menopause where they can take on a different role in society. And there's only two other species that go through menopause: elephants
Talk me through
and
it.
killer whales, right?
Stop
And
it.
what I love about this is that they then take on this matriarchal role in their communities. Elephants and killer whales, they pass on this wisdom down, this knowledge. They know the ancient trails. They become the leaders in their communities. They're teaching the young ones. They're really taking on this mentor role. And I think this is a brilliant opportunity for women to see menopause as that. And I have a real passion for supporting workplaces to see that too. There's an incredible amount of wisdom, knowledge, experience that women hold when they're in their early 50s. They're almost at their peak of their career and what they can contribute. And I think if we kind of spin menopause as this pivot point where the role of women changes into something that's going to benefit workplaces, benefit society, communities, then we can really start to embrace it in another way.
Oh, Jesus. I love that. They become like the elder.
The
Elder
elder.
statesperson.
Exactly. Yes,
Love
that's it.
it. Like in an ancient culture. We look to our. It's unbelievable that you say that being of non-childbearing age seems to have some sort of a stigma around it. Like for my wife and I'm just going to be, like me personally, I think it was the best thing ever. Like it was such a positive thing because you don't have to have unprotected sex anymore. So, like, imagine having a kid at 50. Like
Yeah.
love our boys. They're 20, late 20s. When Jill said, I can't have babies anymore, like, we nearly, cracked the champers. So I didn't realize that there was this. Honestly, I didn't realize there was this negative stigma around it. That we feel like women's life are over just because they're going through menopause, and I really think that's pretty sad. If, as a society, there are people out there that think that. I don't know why, we would think that. It's come up. What's driven that? What's driven that mindset?
I think the way that women change when they go through menopause can be really significant. A lot of that's to do with dealing with some really debilitating symptoms. And, there are lots of things that we can do, particularly for women in their mid 30s to mid 40s, to make that transition easier. But I think, people witness women going through a whole raft of changes. Women themselves get frustrated that, it's impacting their sleep, their energy levels. So I think we just assume that menopause is going to be this absolutely hideous experience for women. Yeah. And I might just actually touch on HRT for a minute because this has also been stigmatized and it isn't for every woman, hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, there are some challenges, but my God, it can really help with the symptoms. It can be life-changing for women. And again, that's been stigmatized. There was a report done in 2002, from the Women's Health Institute, that linked hormone replacement therapy to a higher risk of cancer. That has been completely debunked, that whole report. But what we saw pretty much overnight was hundreds of thousands of women come off their HRT treatment. And we've just gone through a generation of women who have unnecessarily been plagued by debilitating menopause symptoms. So
I'm just gonna looking for my wife. I want to
is she around?
I want to bring
Let's have
her.
a chat.
Yeah, she's here somewhere. I want to bring her into the
Okay.
conversation because like I say, she's just gone through it, and I think she'd have some value to add. And I'd love all our listeners to have hear from her as well. Hormone replacement therapy obviously softens the symptoms or somehow helps women through that period. And then to stigmatize that as well, especially with some unfounded, ungrounded science that would scare people because that's a fear thing. Crazy. Have we seen a trend back up into HRT or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think women are embracing it as we start to unpack the health benefits. Really, the earlier you get onto it, the more benefits there are. So just that rebalancing of your hormones, it's great for your skeletal system.
For your what?
Building muscle, bone structure, and your cardiovascular system. I mean, the risk of cardiovascular issues, heart attack for women increases significantly post-menopause, and HRT can really help with that. So I mean, there's so much misinformation and just a glut of information at the moment as well. There's this thing called washing that's happening where there's lots of companies packaging up supplements and solutions to sell to women, and I think it's up to us to get the right information and look at our lifestyles rather than reaching for the bottle of tablets.
Wow. Such an interesting conversation. I hope our listeners and viewers are enjoying this conversation. This is so educational.
Good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I think it would have been after I spoke to Pollyanna. Pollyanna's, I think, introduced me to menopause. Now it's followed me around.
Yeah.
Like you're probably the third or fourth people. And then Hacia, have you met Hacia Atherton? Mentioned it on a podcast, and then I can't remember who else. And now we're leaning into it now. It's intriguing. I've got my business manager's a 58-year-old woman, and I tell you who it was, the Go Company, they have female sanitary products on mine sites and on industrial sites for men. Oh, great. Two amazing young ladies doing amazing work. Two leckies out of Tassie and setting young women up for success, right, at the different end of their career. They've come into the workplace and they've got women's issues. And some women have no toilets. And nowhere to, to go. And these girls are just on a mission. And it's an amazing thing. And one of the things they said is, Anton, have you thought about in your office putting one of our Go Packs? I said, no worries. So I said to my business manager, who's a 58-year-old female, I said, do you need any of that sort of product? And she said, no, I'm good because I'm through all of that. And it was interesting for her to be able to tell me that too, and just say, no, like for her, it's probably menopause is probably, behind her now maybe, because it was all a non-event for her. She was like, no, I'm good. I don't need anything specific and I'm okay. But I felt pretty comfortable asking the question. And I think managers and leaders probably need to have that sort of awareness and have that sort of a conversation and see what it is they can do. I think plenty of my peer group, I don't know any males that would have had a conversation like this that really go a little bit deeper onto what it looks like. Who is it? Male leaders, female leaders, all leaders, boards? Like who's the person or the groups generally from a demographic perspective that engage your services?
At the moment, it's coming through those diversity, equity, and inclusion groups and HR. So, we've just had Menopause Awareness Month. 18th of October was Menopause Awareness Day globally. So you tend to find there's spikes around International Women's Day, Menopause Awareness Month. It's a great place to start. just to bring a menopause practitioner like me into your organization, just have a general conversation, just start to raise awareness, put the issue on the table and start there. There are some organizations that have been doing great work in this space for a number of years, particularly where they've got a large workforce of female employees. So they have got things like their menopause action plans in place. They've got policies that support flexibility, menstrual policies and menopause policies. They provide one-on-one coaching, confidentially for women who want to go through it. They train their managers. They have it in those workplace conversations when it comes to performance, and they've firmly got it on their agenda. And organisations that have peer support groups for women too. So there are so many things that you can do. But look, when it comes down to it, everyone can be, and you talk about influence, anyone in an organization can influence this. Oh, how are you?
Hi. This is Amanda.
Hi, Amanda. Lovely to meet you.
This is Mrs. G, Amanda. This is Julie.
Hello, Julie.
Now, baby,
Hi, how are you?
I just managed to multitask then, Amanda, and just flick Jules a quick message, said, could you come over? So we're talking menopause. So I just said, Amanda, you've gone 12-month period through. That's cool. And Amanda's saying, so Amanda's job on planet Earth is to set organisations up for success.
Yeah.
And Amanda just talked through, there's peer group support, there's coaching for women, there's dialogue, there's rhetoric in the organisation. Have you seen any of that in your workplaces or? Right. Okay, cool.
No.
So that we need to get Amanda into some of your workplaces.
Yeah.
Did you,
Unfortunately, never.
yeah,
No.
well, but we're not going to bag your workplaces, so it's not the wrong. It's just that they're probably just they haven't met Amanda yet. That's probably the thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you needed something like that in one of your workplaces? Did you ever feel like I'm a menopausal woman, I'd like a hand?
Probably not. I think maybe it's more prevalent now and more in the media and more people are talking about it and more aware. So maybe now, yes. But whereas, I'd say probably, we were just talking to somebody the other day, probably 2 years ago, it wasn't really talked about, where now it's okay to talk about menopause or somebody being in perimenopause and whatever, whereas before it was just, well, you just didn't talk about it,
Yes.
Your girlfriends might talk about it amongst themselves, but it wasn't something that was...
Talked about at work.
No.
Have you ever had a conversation about it in any of your workplaces with the leader, for example?
Not with the leader, no.
No, you wouldn't?
No.
Because they're not ready to have that conversation?
Probably, yeah.
Right.
I'd say that they probably
That would
another thing. Yeah, probably that too. But also, it's another thing that they've got to manage with people, maybe.
Right. What, you don't want to burden them with that? Is that what you're saying? Or?
I suppose some people want to keep private to themselves and don't need to worry too much about. Whereas everybody's different, and other people, handle things differently, and
Wouldn't it be cool though if someone like Amanda was at some of the organisations that you've crossed to give leaders support so those conversations became okay?
And that's what I'm saying, because it's more prevalent now, in recent times. That's probably more of a avenue that could happen.
Cool, baby. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Nice to meet you. Look, that's
sorry, Amanda.
No, look,
sorry,
that's really interesting, and this concept of it's a personal thing, just get on with it. We just get on with it.
You heard that,
and
that attitude.
Yeah, I'm talking to women now who I'm coaching one-on-one, who are in their 50s.
Awesome.
And their mothers are having conversations with their mothers, which is very interesting. And their mothers are like, you know what? I went through it and I just got on with it. Why do we need all of these support? Why do we need this conversation? And
why do you need this coaching?
Yeah, why do you need this? Like we did it and we just got on with it and we didn't make a fuss.
We're okay.
Yeah, we were okay. And it's like, but were you?
Oh, yeah, were you?
Why should we struggle in silence and feel that we can't raise it when every woman's going to go through it? It doesn't make any sense. And look, I'm going to say this, and I know you'll get it. But because the majority of our workforces were built on structures to support men, if at the age of early 50s, men fell off a cliff hormonally and they struggled with a whole raft of symptoms.
That's it. Oh.
What do you think our workplaces would look like? If men were going to go through menopause, wouldn't we have systems in place to support them? Wouldn't we be talking about it? And
absolutely.
I just think, we've got to the point now where it's equal representation in a lot of workforces, and it's a conversation worth having.
Good. I love it. That's a really, really good way to maybe start wrapping up. That's a conversation worth having. Very quickly, we're talking about find your influence, and I was probably more intrigued by menopause really than and what organisations can do, because I work with so many leaders and so many senior leaders. Who's had the biggest influence on you in your life? Pretty please.
It's look, it's hard to pinpoint to one person, and I don't want to sort of be generalist about it, but I have been most influenced by the women that I have seen turn their lives around after going through disadvantage, like the courage that, and this is the work that I've been doing in Australia for the last sort of 12 years, is, women are coming from the most disadvantaged backgrounds, from illness, domestic violence, migrant and refugee background, and for them to take the steps with very little support to turn their life around, to create something for their children, to get themselves out of a difficult situation. I've got to say that, when I rocked up at the organisation to do the work I did every single day, I was influenced by the courage of those women. So that's going to be my sphere of influence.
I love that. And that's nearly more than influence. That's nearly inspiration, inspirare. Like if they can do it, imagine what we can all do. If you can pull yourself out of that destitution, holy dooly, we can all, we can face our daily challenges if there's strong women like that out there. So, as an example.
Amazing.
Love that. From a leadership perspective, did you have good leaders when you were in the workforce?
I did. I was very fortunate. And look, I think having worked 20 odd years in the not-for-profit space, in the charity space, there is a level of compassion and empathy from leaders that's sort of intrinsic because of the work. I had, in my last role, it was actually my amazing CEO, Donna Deswart, and Pollyanna knows her very well as well. Nice. And when I was going through my own journey of menopause, we weren't talking about it as an organisation. And here we were, an organisation of 40 women helping thousands of women every year, and we weren't having the conversation. And at the end of one of their senior leadership meetings, I put menopause on the agenda under any other business, and talked about my experience. And Donna heard me, saw me, validated that, and then gave me the most amazing book called Wise Women, which really helped to reframe the experience of menopause. And she was instigative in supporting me to go on this journey. So I think having leaders like that around you, it's priceless.
Powerful. And how grateful are we for our strong leaders who lean into caring for us and supporting us. Great answer, beautiful answer. And I love the non-for-profit sector. I just see such care and compassion in that section that it's pretty unrivaled in the private sector or the public sector. So you have now, having experienced all those great leaders and being a leader yourself and being a coach now, coaching is such important work, such responsible work, sitting eyeball to eyeball with other humans and helping them through their personal challenges. Have you a leadership mantra? Have you developed like a leadership style, quote, theory, strategy that you lean into?
It would have to be around really understanding where someone is at, and that comes from asking the right questions. And I've been studying neuro-linguistic programming for the last couple of years.
NLP.
NLP. And, I think one of the core things that came out for me is people are doing the best with what they have right now. Everyone's doing the best with what they have.
Love it.
And it is about asking the right questions, and continuing to ask questions and not making assumptions. So I think my leadership style, unbeknownst to me, really, I hadn't put a label on, has always been about asking the right questions.
Love it.
And listening. And then when I went on this journey around NLP, I'm like, well, there you go. That's actually a proven method of coaching, but I've been doing that for years.
100%. I love that. Now, the big question that I ask every interview into every podcast guest: who would you get on next if you're me and you want to have some great conversations? Who's a great human? Pretty please.
I'm going to go with a fantastic woman called Lauren Chirin, and she is working across Australia and the UK. She's working with a lot of organizations about developing menopause support.
Wow.
She just actually recently spoke at the Sydney Opera House a couple of months ago, and she's really forging the way. She's been in this space for, gosh, I want to say 15 years. She left a high-profile career because she thought she was having early onset dementia. It turned out to be early onset menopause. She is fantastic. She's got great connections with organizations. She's doing some amazing work. So if you wanted to take this deeper around how to work with organizations and really get some structural change happening, she's your woman. And I studied under her for my my coaching diploma as well. So she's on a mission to train 20,000 menopause coaches before she hangs up her hat. So
nice.
Yeah, she's
That's
great.
a big goal.
Yeah.
Good, I love it. I love it. Would you mind? Is it too much to ask for a quick intro to Lauren?
Yeah,
Would that be
yeah,
all right?
I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to.
Thank you so much. Send you an email at the end of this just to close out our conversation.
Great.
And if that's not too much trouble, that would be very much appreciated, because I can't. I'm just intrigued by this conversation because especially seeing Jules go through it, and I used to be the very, very loving husband and be very patient. And then one day I said to her, "You'll love this. Now just breathe through this as I say this." She said, "Oh yeah, I'm very menopause." I go, "Yes, babe, I know." And then I left this for a special occasion. I said, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "I get it because I'm very andropausal."
No, yeah.
And, she didn't think that was very funny at all. She couldn't relate. To our struggles.
Yeah.
Joking. Not many people know about andropause, and so
No.
I brought including my lovely wife, who it was new to. She said, "You don't understand." I said, "I know, babe, I was just joking." But just for all those women out there is a thing called andropause that men go through, and it's zero. So here's andropause and here's menopause, and so there's no comparison. But it's good it's a good party trick. It's a good party. Amanda, Carlile, you have been amazing. Thank you so very much for being so open and candid and informative and engaging. It's just love these conversations, learn so much, and really value your time over there in the UK. Thanks heaps, Amanda.
And thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Anton.
Love your work.
Thanks for listening. We just had an amazing guest on to another amazing podcast of Find Your Influence. My name's Anton Guinea, and for 20 years I have been working with, training, coaching and consulting leaders at all levels of organizations. I have coached Gen Z leaders right through to baby boomer leaders. I've done 1,500 one-on-one leadership coaching sessions. My mission on this planet is to help leaders create high-performing and psychologically safe teams. If you want to upgrade your leadership, upskill your teams, or upskill your leadership, please reach out. You can get me at anton@theguineagroup.com.au. Please tune into our next episode. These podcast chats are amazing. The value and the information that you get will help you be more influential and help you be a better leader.